They told you love is the answer. That if you give endlessly, forgive quickly, stay open, and remain soft, the world will protect you, respect you, return the same love back. But Niccolò Machiavelli, the man who studied power with surgical precision, saw it differently. He didn't see love as a gift. He saw it as a gamble, a liability, a chink in the armor of men who wanted to rise above the ordinary. To Machiavelli, the most dangerous mistake you can make is assuming that love, loyalty, or good intentions will shield you from betrayal. Let's be brutally honest. The people closest to you, your partner, your family, your best friends, they're not immune to turning against you. In fact, they are the most likely to do it. Why? Because they know you won't strike back. You've forgiven them before. You've stayed silent to keep the peace. You've made excuses. They didn't mean it. They were just upset. They'll come around. But each time you erase their mistake without a lesson attached, you teach them one thing. You are safe to betray. This is the Machiavellian law of closeness. The more they love you, the more they expect access to your resources, your time, your energy, without having to earn it. And over time, love without limits doesn't become devotion. It becomes entitlement. You stop being seen as a person. You become a utility, an emotional ATM, a sponge for their chaos, a dumping ground for their insecurity, a backup plan they never expect to lose. But let me ask you, have you ever felt like the more you gave, the more they expected? The more patient you became, the more they disrespected your peace? The more understanding you offered, the more blind they became to your pain? This isn't an accident. It's the natural consequence of emotional exposure without boundaries. Machiavelli didn't say you should stop loving. He said you must contain your love. Let it breathe, but never let it bleed endlessly. Let it support, but never let it serve without measure. Love must be a strategic allocation of energy, not a bottomless offering that burns you alive. Because once people realize your love is unconditional, they stop being careful with how they treat you. They don't think twice before using your kindness as leverage. They don't hesitate to push your buttons, knowing you'll never pull away. They don't respect your limits, because you've never enforced any. You've been trained to believe that being soft is virtuous, that self-sacrifice is holy, that if you give more, people will eventually wake up and love you harder. But Machiavelli would laugh at that. He'd say, people don't value what is always available. They exploit it. And if you don't understand this, you'll be used by the people you love most. So what's the alternative? It's not to become cruel. It's to become strategically cold, to stay warm but never without a wall behind it, to be generous, but only with those who pass your tests, to speak with affection, but remain ready to cut access at the first sign of betrayal. This is the essence of Machiavellian love: conditional, disciplined, and always filtered through logic, not emotion. Because while others are out here bleeding for anyone who shows them a little affection, you, the man of power, calculate, observe, guard. You must become cold-blooded, not because love is evil, but because it's blind, and the world is not. This isn't about turning your back on humanity. It's about protecting the best parts of yourself from being degraded by those who take your loyalty for granted. The world doesn't need more nice guys getting walked on. It needs more men who understand that being emotionally available without strategy is suicide. So next time you feel like you're being used, pause and ask yourself, is this love? Or is it just emotional dependency wearing the mask of connection? Because if you're not evaluating, you're just offering your peace up for sacrifice. And Machiavelli would never die on someone else's emotional battlefield. he would retreat, recalibrate, return only when respected. And if you want to survive, not just emotionally, but strategically, you must do the same. This is only the beginning. In the next part, we'll go deeper into the exact psychological traps that people close to you use, guilt, silence, loyalty expectations, to manipulate your emotional system, and most importantly, how to reverse the power dynamic without losing your humanity. Stay sharp. There's a reason most betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from those who've studied your soft spots, the ones you've shared secrets with, the ones you trusted blindly, the ones who knew exactly how to speak to your compassion, while hiding their manipulation behind emotional noise. Machiavelli warned us clearly. The closer someone stands to you, the more likely they are to exploit the fact that you won't retaliate. In this section, we dive into the 5 psychological traps people closest to you use, sometimes without even realizing it, to slowly unravel your strength. And if you don't recognize them, you'll keep mistaking manipulation for love. Trap number 1. The entitlement shift. This is when someone stops appreciating what you do for them and starts expecting it. You're always there to help? That's not generous. That's required. You always support their emotional outbursts? That's not patience. That's your job. You sacrifice your time for their convenience. That's not noble. That's the new norm. And the moment you say no, you're selfish. You've changed. You used to care. But the truth, they never loved the real you. They loved the version of you who didn't have boundaries. The version who let them violate your peace without cost. Machiavelli would say, let them speak. That's just the sound of someone mourning the loss of their advantage. Your job isn't to explain your withdrawal, it's to enforce it. Trap number 2, the guilt reflex. You finally draw a line, say no, take space, prioritize yourself, and they don't meet you with understanding. They meet you with guilt tactics. After everything I did for you, you're really going to do this now. You've become cold. It's no longer a conversation. It's a maneuver. An emotional chess move designed to make you second-guess your strength. Because if they can make you feel guilty, they don't need to respect your boundary. They just need to push your empathy button. But Machiavelli would remind you, guilt is the emotional weapon of the powerless. Not because they're weak, but because they can't control you logically. So they turn to emotion. Here's the cure. Hold the line. Let the silence speak. And remember, if someone uses guilt to get close, it was never about love. It was about control. Trap number 3, the loyalty loop. You've been loyal, supportive, consistent. But over time, they stop matching that energy. They stop checking in, stop reciprocating, start vanishing until it's convenient for them to show up. And when you finally pull back, they panic. Not because they're heartbroken, but because they just lost their emotional insurance policy. Machiavelli's take. If your loyalty is predictable, it will be exploited before it is appreciated. In other words, your goodness, without edge, becomes invisible. Stop being shocked when someone disrespects what you never protected. Let them earn your loyalty. Every time. Without assumption. Trap number 4. Just this once. This is the softest trap and the most dangerous. Can you cover this for me just this once? Can you ignore that thing I did just this once? Can you stay even though I broke the boundary just this once? And you say yes, because it's small, because you care, because they mean well. But the moment you give in, it's never just once. They've discovered your bend point. They now know you'll compromise as long as they stay close enough, as long as they cry the right way, as long as they keep you emotionally confused. That's not love. That's strategic pressure. Machiavelli would say, never confuse sentiment with stability. What bends once can be broken later. Trap number 5. The you're too harsh. Defense. This is the final trap, the one that flips your strength into a sin. You enforce a boundary, you're cold. You pull back, you're heartless. You stop explaining yourself, you've changed. But they don't miss your warmth. They miss access to the version of you who tolerated their chaos. Let that sink in. Machiavelli would never ask, do they still like me? He'd ask, do they still respect me? Because the man who fears being seen as cold will always be surrounded by people who use warmth to disarm him. And once you're disarmed, you're easy, predictable, powerless. So what's the solution? You don't become numb. You become aware. You don't stop loving. You stop loving blindly. You don't shut down emotionally. You become selective. Let them call you cold. Let them say you've changed. Let them rewrite your character to match their disappointment. Because the minute they say, you used to be more forgiving, you never used to act this distant, you're not the same. Machiavelli would smile and say, good. They finally feel the difference. That means your evolution has begun. Remember, being feared doesn't mean being hated. It means being respected enough that people think twice before crossing you. And in the next section, we'll dive deep into the rules and psychological structures Machiavelli would build to ensure his emotional boundaries are never negotiated, only enforced. These are rules you can adopt today. Rules that make disrespect costly. Rules that let you stay loving, but never vulnerable without a filter. This is where your strength becomes permanent. By now you understand this. Emotions without discipline get weaponized. The modern world doesn't punish weakness with swords. It punishes it with silence, guilt, gaslighting, and manipulation. Machiavelli didn't fear love. He feared what love becomes when it's unchecked. He didn't hate emotion. He feared how emotion blinds you to what's being taken from you in real time. So he created rules, not theories, not philosophies, but non-negotiable behavioral standards that made it clear. You can love me, but only within a structure. You can get close, but only if you prove you can handle my power. Here are the 5 emotional laws of power you must live by if you want to rise and stay untouchable. Rule number 1. Never explain your emotional distance. You take space. You go quiet. You say no. You withdraw access. And they ask, what's wrong? They pressure you for a reason. They want a breakdown, a speech, a tear-filled essay about how you feel. Why? Because the more you explain, the more they can negotiate. Machiavelli would say, to explain is to invite negotiation. To act without permission is to command authority. So instead of over-talking, you say just one thing. I've recalibrated. That's it. No defense, no emotional unloading, no vulnerability they can twist against you. Your silence becomes the fortress. Your refusal to bleed becomes the statement. You don't have to justify your boundaries. You just have to live them. Rule number 2. Set consequences, not conditions. This is where most people fail. They set conditions like, please don't talk to me like that. I'll be really upset if you do this again. If you love me, don't disrespect me. Begging, pleading, trying to teach a wolf how to play nice. But Machiavelli didn't warn people. He punished them. He didn't say, don't do that. He let them do it once and made sure they paid a cost they'd never forget. You must do the same. Don't say, don't talk to me that way. Let them talk and then disappear. Don't say, if you keep doing this, I'll walk. Walk. Don't announce it. Execute it. Because when people don't feel consequence, they don't change. Boundaries that beg are ignored. Boundaries that act, respected. Rule number 3, never negotiate through emotion. If they know you panic when ignored, they'll go silent to control you. If they know you cry when pressured, they'll guilt trip you into reversing your power. If they know you chase after withdrawal, they'll pull back every time they want leverage. Machiavelli would never allow this. He would guard his emotional reactions like a king protects the gate to the throne. Your new stance is this: no impulsive texts, no re-entry after being disrespected, no "I just feel like" paragraphs. You become unreadable under pressure. Still, cold, calm. Because in the modern world, stillness is the most intimidating form of power. If they want access to your warmth, they'll have to earn it again. Rule number 4, define what you tolerate and never wobble. This is where emotional power gets solidified. Most people's boundaries shift depending on who's asking how long they've known them, how tired they are, how afraid they are of losing the relationship. That's not a boundary. That's emotional inflation. And it kills your value. Machiavelli would demand you live by non-negotiable policies like, I don't respond to yelling. If I set space, it remains until I reopen it. Apologies without changed behavior don't get rewarded. Once the rule is in place, you follow it. Every single time. No exceptions, no bending, no just this once. Because people don't test what's enforced. They test what's flexible. If you wobble, they escalate. If you remain solid, they either adjust or walk. And either way, you win. Rule number 5, don't fear being seen as harsh. This is the emotional death trap for most people. They finally start setting boundaries. But the moment someone says, you're too cold, you're acting arrogant, you're heartless, they fold, they explain, they apologize, they try to prove they're still the nice guy. But Machiavelli would stop you right there and say, let them call you what they want. If you fear being cold more than being weak, you'll always be a tool in someone else's strategy. Because being feared, even slightly, is a signal that you're no longer easy to use, that you won't overgive, that you won't over-explain, that you're no longer emotionally available on demand. And yes, they'll miss the version of you who bled on command. Let them mourn that version, because it was that softness that got you stepped on in the first place. So what now? You've got the rules, but rules only work if they become rituals. Daily behavior, subconscious, automatic. In the next section, we go deeper. How to train your emotional system to be cold-blooded in moments where it used to panic. How to turn disrespect into data, and how to build the Machiavellian mindset of calculated stillness that shakes people without you ever needing to raise your voice. Your transformation isn't about changing who you are. It's about controlling who gets access to it. Machiavelli didn't just set rules. He trained his mind until power became instinct, until silence felt more powerful than shouting, until distance felt more effective than chasing, until emotional control became his default operating system. Most people feel pain and react. He felt pain and recalibrated. And that's your next evolution. You already know what needs to change. But the real question is this: can you stay calm when everything in you wants to explode, explain, or engage? Because that's where most lose power. Not in what they tolerate, but in how they respond under pressure. Let's break down the 6 habits of the cold-blooded mind. Habits that let you stay warm in appearance, but untouchable in execution. Habit 1. Move without emotional announcements. You don't need to say, I'm cutting you off, I'm taking space, I'm working on myself. You just move. You slow your replies. You stop showing up for people who violate your peace. You disappear from dynamics that drain you. No caption, no confrontation, no closure speech. Why? Because power doesn't need permission. And boundaries aren't up for debate. They're revealed through behavior. Machiavelli would never explain his silence. He'd just make sure they felt it. And that's your new stance. Let your withdrawal say everything, and your consistency make it permanent. Habit 2. Stay polite. Never overfamiliar. This might surprise you, but cold-blooded doesn't mean rude. It means measured. You greet with composure. You compliment with purpose. You exit while still being respected. Why? Because the emotionally familiar man is easy to use, but the man who's always precise, he's impossible to manipulate. Keep your tone calm, your energy clean, but never let anyone confuse politeness with permission to violate you. This is your edge, respectful presence, without emotional debt. Habit 3. Reflect before reacting. Always someone disrespects you, lies to you, goes silent, tests your limit. Your old self explains, reacts, panics, begins a 12-paragraph text message. The new self observes, catalogs, adjusts access. Machiavelli never reacted emotionally, not because he didn't feel, but because he saw emotional impulsivity as strategic suicide. Every time you want to respond emotionally, ask, does this move me closer to power or pull me back into weakness? Is this a reaction based on panic or a decision based on positioning? Remember, stillness creates mystery. Mystery creates pressure. Pressure creates respect. Habit 4. Never reopen. What you closed without requalification. You left for a reason. Don't return because you're bored. Don't re-engage because they apologized. Time doesn't heal betrayal. Standards do. If they haven't grown, you haven't missed anything. Make them re-earn the version of you who showed up. This is how Machiavelli maintained dominance. He never gave back access without requiring transformation. If you returned to old dynamics without verifying change, you weren't strong. You were just on break. Habit 5. Treat your peace as a private strategy, not a public statement. You're not emotionally mature to make a statement. You're not becoming cold-blooded so people admire you. You're doing it so people respect what they can no longer reach. You live quietly. You protect deeply. You move with precision. Because in a world that screams for validation, your emotional discipline becomes intimidation. You become the man who doesn't chase, doesn't justify, doesn't flinch. And in doing so, you become a mirror. You force others to see themselves, not because you said anything, but because your absence made them feel the imbalance they took for granted. Habit 6. Master the slow reaction. Do you know what scares people most? Not yelling, not threatening, not even cutting them off. It's the man who sees betrayal and says nothing. He disappears quietly. He adjusts access without a fight. He removes privilege without a single emotional outburst. This is power. Fast reactions equals emotional weakness. Slow reactions equals psychological warfare. Machiavelli acted on advantage, never impulse. And now, so do you. From now on, when someone hurts you, ask, what did this teach me about them? How can I extract power from this pain? How do I reposition without explaining myself? You go from emotional victim to strategic observer. You don't spiral, you catalog. You don't panic, you reposition. This mindset makes you unpredictable. And unpredictability? That's dominance. You don't have to be cruel to be cold-blooded. You don't have to disconnect from love. You just have to protect your love with filters, rules, and unwavering standards. Your softness becomes powerful when it's earned, not assumed. Your presence becomes a privilege, not a habit. You no longer live at the emotional mercy of others. You live at the center of your own strategic emotional empire. And in the final part, we'll talk about how to build that empire long-term. Not just a temporary glow-up, but a permanent transformation into a man who doesn't need to announce power because he radiates it without a word. This is where most men fail. They begin the transformation. They start setting boundaries. They stop bleeding for people who never earned their access. But then, they're called cold, selfish, detached, arrogant. And the doubt creeps in. They start asking, am I becoming heartless? What if I lose myself? What if I turn into the very thing I hate? Machiavelli knew this fear well. He didn't deny it. He tamed it. He understood that power without conscience is a tyrant. But conscience without power? That's a slave in disguise. You don't have to become the monster they accuse you of. You just have to become someone they can't manipulate. Let's break this final section into 6 lifestyle principles, so you walk the line between strength and empathy with surgical control. Step 1. Define your intention, not their perception. The world will always try to label your growth. You'll hear, you've changed, you're distant, you're acting too cold. But Machiavelli would say, if you need others to approve your evolution, you've already surrendered the freedom to evolve. So before you react to the criticism, ask yourself, am I setting boundaries to protect my peace or to punish them? Am I creating distance because I'm cold or because I've been drained? Am I going silent because I'm immature or because I've already spoken enough? If the answer is self-protection, not retaliation, stay the course. Let their discomfort rise. Let the labels come, because discomfort is the price they pay for losing access to the old version of you. And that's not your burden. That's their adjustment phase. Step 2. Show mercy without losing your stance. Kindness isn't weakness. Forgiveness isn't failure. But mercy without standards, that's manipulation bait. You can forgive. You can offer another chance. You can help someone who's growing, but never return without a reason. Never lower your standards just because someone shows regret. Never forget the reason you walked just because they're crying now. Machiavelli believed in requalification. You don't give the same access to someone who once abused it, without proof that they've changed. Softness is allowed, but surrender is not. Step 3. Control your presence, not just your distance. People think that disappearing is the power move, and yes, silence is a weapon. But Machiavelli knew. True influence lies not in absence, but in controlled presence. Here's what that means. You show up briefly. You speak with clarity. You exit while they still feel your impact. You don't rant. You don't argue. You don't emotionally explode. You leave a void, one that forces them to reflect. You become the reminder, not the enemy, not the wreckage, but the man who left with dignity and power. And that subtle exit, it cuts deeper than any outburst ever could. Step 4. Maintain standards, not control. You can't force people to respect you. You can only make disrespect expensive. This means no chasing apologies, no begging for clarity, no trying to force understanding. You let people disqualify themselves. And when they do, you remove emotional privileges without a scene. Your silence becomes a mirror. It reflects their own failure back to them. And here's the key. If they rise to meet your standard, you re-engage. If not, they never belonged beside your evolution anyway. Power isn't control. It's the ability to walk away without emotional collapse. Step 5. Let your kindness become selective. Not exhausted. You don't stop being kind. You stop being careless with your kindness. Your warmth is now given. Slowly, after observation. Conditionally, based on behavior. Strategically, with built-in exit plans if things shift. Let them call it transactional. Let them say, "You've changed," because unconditional giving sounds noble, until it's used as a weapon against your peace. You no longer give to prove you're good. You give when it aligns with your standards. Peace vision. That's not selfish. That's self-command. Step 6. Don't defend your boundaries. Enforce them. This is the final wall. They'll accuse you. You're acting brand new. You've gone too far. You're too harsh now. But Machiavelli wouldn't argue. He wouldn't defend. He'd just disappear without ever slamming the door, because power isn't earned through argument. It's revealed through consistency. Let them miss the old version of you, but don't give them the new one until they prove they've earned it. You don't explain your transformation. You embody it. Over time, your silence will do what your words never could. Make them respect the version of you who no longer bleeds for their comfort. Final principle. Balance isn't a line. It's a filter. This isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally filtered. You're not a stone. You're a mirror. You reflect others clearly. You offer warmth when earned. You remain calm, even when tested. You pull back without venom. You re-engage without surrender. This is Machiavellian empathy, strategic, conditional, unshakable in its standards. You've learned the traps. You've mastered the rules. You've outgrown the version of yourself that bled too easily. Now you live the lifestyle, silently, powerfully, permanently. You've made it this far. You understand the psychology. You've studied the tactics. You've started building emotional boundaries that actually hold. But none of it matters if it isn't habitual. Because pressure will come. Old people will return. Your kindness will be tested. Your identity will be challenged. So the question becomes, how do you make cold-blooded thinking second nature without becoming numb, bitter, or hollow? That's where integration begins. This final section gives you 5 habits to turn cold-blooded precision into a permanent lifestyle, so that even on your worst days, your standard holds. Let's break it down. Habit 1. Move without emotional announcement. Don't tell people, "I'm protecting my peace now. I'm focusing on myself. I've decided to distance myself." You just move. You slow down replies. You don't re-engage broken cycles. You stop over-explaining decisions. You don't return once you've walked away, unless it's earned. Why? Because real power doesn't ask for permission, and true boundaries don't come with explanations. They arrive with consistency. You never see a lion explain why it left the pack. It just leaves, and everything around it shifts. That's you now. You don't need applause. You need results. The ones who don't get it were never meant to. The ones who do, they'll adjust their behavior, or they'll exit themselves. Habit 2. Stay polite. Never over-familiar. Your warmth isn't dead, but now it's disciplined. Machiavelli wasn't cold out of cruelty. He was polite, composed, and respectful, but never emotionally available by default. You must remain courteous, but ungrabbable. Here's how. Greet others calmly, never with forced enthusiasm. Compliment rarely, and only with intent. Exit conversations while you're still respected, not when you're drained. Why? Because over-familiarity kills authority. The more access people get to your emotional presence without earning it, the more they treat your energy as a free resource. That version of you, he's gone. Now, your presence must carry weight, not habit. People must notice when you leave, not just your arrival. That's the cold-blooded effect, not loud, but unforgettable. Habit 3. Reflect before reacting. Always. Most people don't think, They just feel and react. But cold-blooded control means developing a delay, a pause between the emotion and the decision. This doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you refuse to obey every feeling. When triggered, don't respond immediately. Sit in the discomfort. Let the wave pass. Ask yourself, what position does this person want me in emotionally? And then you choose, do I stay silent? Do I adjust access? Do I withdraw my energy? Machiavelli understood. The one who reacts emotionally first loses positioning second. You're no longer reactive. You're responsive. You move slow and strategically. That delay, that's where all your power lives now. Habit 4. Never reopen what you closed without requalification. Most people fold under time and nostalgia. They say, it's been a while. They said they've changed. Maybe I overreacted. Time doesn't equal growth. Apologies don't equal transformation. Missing someone doesn't mean they're still worthy of your access. If someone wants access to the new you, they must requalify. What does that look like? Changed patterns over changed words. Initiated accountability, not guilt trips. Respect for your boundaries without pushback. And if they don't bring that, you haven't lost anything. Because a cold-blooded man never returns to comfort zones that once destroyed his clarity. You left for a reason. Don't come back without a new one. Habit 5. Treat your emotional peace as a private strategy, not a public campaign. This is the final mastery. Most people use their growth as a billboard. Look how cold I've become. I cut everyone off. Don't mess with me. That's not power. That's insecurity wearing armor. Real strength moves in silence. You don't need others to know how much you've grown. They'll feel it when you don't explain, you don't defend, you don't fold, you don't return, you don't post about boundaries. You live them. You don't argue about how changed you are. You let your absence say it all. Machiavelli would say, you don't have to yell to show strength. Let them guess how dangerous your silence truly is. Now your emotional maturity is no longer public property. It's private warfare, used only when needed. Let them wonder. Let them miss you. Let them call you heartless. But let no one ever again access your soul without requalification. Final words. Cold-blooded doesn't mean loveless. Let's be clear. You're not building these habits to become numb. You're not locking your heart away forever. You're just refusing to be a pawn in someone else's emotional game. You still love, still feel, still hope, still connect. But now, you choose who gets access with ruthless discernment. Your love is no longer assumed, it's earned. Your care is no longer automatic, it's conditional. Your energy is no longer cheap, it's calculated. This is not cruelty. This is self-command. This is Machiavellian emotional strategy at its peak. No more overgiving, no more explaining, no more flinching. From today forward, you don't defend the new you. You embody it. Silently, fully, permanently. Let them adjust. Let them complain. Let them leave. Because the man who fears being misunderstood ends up surrounded by people who understood only how to misuse him. You're no longer that man. You are the standard now. You are the gatekeeper. You are cold-blooded. Not because you stopped feeling, but because you finally started choosing who is worth the feeling.